working until way beyond when the rest of us were asleep last night. And I'd be surprised if Gavin managed to get any sleep at all, having to then get up from the hospital. So we have a great gratitude to them. In terms of the process that we'll go through today, we have a number of the things that are on the website in the resolution section. We're going to take this afternoon as a statement of support. I'm hoping that at the moment those are being extracted from resolutions just so that makes it a bit easier as we roll through the morning. That's a little complication to speak with, so that's good. So there will be some things that if you've already downloaded them or whatever, there'll be some things that we might quickly skip past, but we're not really skipping past that we will be looking at later. I'd also just like to remind you that one of the roles of the Resolutions Committee, when it considers the things that come forward from members or from networks and commissions, is to formulate those into resolutions that we can look at, and most will be edited. The edits, for example, there were two resolutions that almost said the same thing, or about the same things, so they being merged into one. I'll flag that when we get to that one. The committee is trying to make sure that we don't have a shopping list of points under each resolution, but it's a focus. Try to ensure that when the resolutions are read by people whose first language is not English, they are easy to grasp and understand. So please understand that process is what kept them up until midnight last night. We will, as we did on, I'm losing track of what day of the week it is. I believe today's Saturday and we looked at resolutions on Thursday, if my memory is correct. We will, as we did on Thursday, take a couple of sections as a group because we think that they will command general assent, all of them as in that group. There will be other resolutions where we will invite a presentation and expect to have some conversation in the room. We have quite a lot left even when we take the statements of support out, so we're going to have to actually work hard this morning. But I'm sure you're all up for that. Yeah, I'm getting some thumbs up, so that's really encouraging. Thank you, Joel. The translators have been given a list of what we will be looking at this morning. As we did on Thursday, there will be the opportunity, because you haven't had time to look in detail at the kind of revised texts, there will be an opportunity to look on the screen or on your computers or tablets or whatever you're using to read the text. During that time, the translators will provide a translation of that text for those of you who are taking advantage of the translation provision. So you will be able to hear that resolution in your own language if you're using the translation. I think that that's all the kind of housekeeping-y bits about how we're going to work our way through. So I shall sit down where all my printed copy of the resolutions is, and we will begin. So 3J, 4A and 4B will be looked at this afternoon. And we begin then with a group of resolutions from IASCUFO 4C, 4D, 4E and 4F. So if we could have, as we have, there we are, 4C, is on the screen. So if either read from the screen or from your own device, and then we will move on after that to put 4D up on the screen. We're taking these as a block because they were part of the presentation that we received from IASCUFO, and there was opportunity for feedback at that point. I think there may be some issues with the translation. Okay. We will scroll through these 4 resolutions. The translation booth stuff needs to be reset, so we'll use the opportunity to have a look at these. So whoever's manning the screen, if you could, so Daniela, if you could move on to the next one, and then we'll go through, and then we'll perhaps go on. They're back on, so that's good news. Slight technology challenges this morning. When I was one of the chairs of the General Synod, the voting system broke down twice. On both occasions I was in the chair, and on both occasions we were talking about the Anglican Communion Covenant. Not that I'm any kind of jinx or anything. Has everybody in the room managed to read the items on the screen? I'm conscious that those needing the translation probably haven't had all of them yet. So if you could just bear with us. If someone who's using translation could let me know when 4F has finished, that would be helpful. I've had a thumbs up from one booth. I still see people talking in the translation booth, so do bear with us. Great. I've had thumbs up from the translation booths. So I would invite you to indicate by raising your hand if you give your general consent to the adoption of these resolutions. Please raise your hand now, and if you could raise it high enough that I can see that it's up, that's extra helpful. Thank you very much. That clearly has your general consent. The next item that we're going to look at is 4G, and I'm going to invite Martha to come and speak briefly to introduce this item. She'll need the microphone.
Thank you, and thank you for welcoming me so warmly yesterday to my new role. It's really kind of you. Today I'm speaking about this resolution from the perspective of my current role with Archbishop Justin's Reconciliation Ministry, and building on the work that we have done over the last few years, resourcing bishops and church groups around the communion for their ministries amidst conflict and division. And as we were working towards the Lambeth Conference, working with bishops and with the Anglican Youth Network, it was clear that there was real enthusiasm amongst the bishops to recognise the role that young people are already playing in peacemaking and reconciliation around the world, and a real hunger from young people to have that recognition more widely spoken about. This is also coming from an awareness of the context we live in, where there are, thank you so much, Grace. This is also coming from an awareness of the context that we live in, where polarisation is also in effect between the generations, and sometimes that can creep into our church communities, where there might be misunderstanding or hurts. That if we want to disciple leaders of the future really well, we need to create time to hear that, to work through it, and to move together into the future. So that's what this resolution means by creating space for those kind of conversations amongst our churches. And finally, this is recognising the work that Clifton and others spoke about yesterday with the Anglican Youth Network, and the potential that they've shown in the growth since ACC-18, and what that could look like at the next ACC if there are increasing resources given to support their work in peacemaking and reconciliation. And the Archbishop's Reconciliation Ministry has a programme called Difference, which is one resource amongst many that the Anglican Peace and Justice Network and your own provinces will be able to help identify, that we can work together to say what would that resourcing of young people look like, and how could we then celebrate what's achieved at the next ACC. If you've got any questions, we're happy to take them.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments or questions on the resolution? Have those requiring translation had it? Yep. Oh, okay. Somebody's just given me a not quite finished signal. I think we're almost there. Okay, I've got a thumbs up. So I would invite members of the ACC to raise their hands if they wish to give general consent to the adoption of this resolution. Please raise your hands. Thank you. That very clearly has your general consent. We now come to 4H, and Ranjit is going to come and introduce this. If you can keep it to 3 minutes, that would be great, Ranjit.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ranjit Matthews from the Episcopal Church. And I think, after our visit, certainly on Wednesday, a lot of feelings and thoughts came up about that visit, and all sort of within the gamut of, maybe some sadness, anger, maybe there was some indifference, but a space in which we might engage together around the ways in which the transatlantic slave trade had impacted so many of our provinces, right? And so the opportunity to understand all of that from a place of wholeness, right? How can we invite members of our community into wholeness as if we've been connected by it, and how through the gospel we can move through it with a sense of redemption. And so I think this invitation here with this resolution invites that whole sort of space for all of us to move into with a sense of honesty, a sense of acknowledgement, lament, repair, and then we can move, I think, as a whole into a sense of reconciliation. But we need to do that work, I think, for the whole and the good of the communion. So I would welcome a space, and I know this resolution was pared down just a little bit. We would have loved to see it sort of ensconced within particular commissions, but I think for the sake of passage, we got to this space, and I know that happened certainly maybe with other resolutions too, around the doctrine of discovery, etc. But I'd love a space of discussion where we can dive a little bit more deeper. And even if this causes a little bit of tension amongst us, that's okay, right? We can move together as a communion into all the realities of what it presents. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there comments? Do please read the resolution on the screen. I'm conscious I didn't allow the time for the translators to translate the resolution. We've got 2 people wishing to make comments, and Darren will bring you the microphone.
Thank you, Joaquin from Argentina, South America. I was part of the group that proposed this, and I want to highlight point 4, what we mean by historical investigation. We've been to Cape Coast, and it's been very moving, but it has also been a bit weird how well we were received. Reconciliation probably might been done before we arrived or not, and I'm not sure who were being reconciled. Was it the Church of England with the Church of Ghana? Was it England with Ghana, or was it the Anglican Communion with Ghana? So what we're proposing is something we must do in a deeply manner. I'm from South America. The whole of South America was colonized by Portuguese and Spanish, North America by the British, Oceania by the British. And currently, I want to point out, my country had a war with England 40 years ago. Not 400, but 40. We were stolen what we call the Islas Malvinas, also known as the Falkland Islands. Is the Anglican Communion going to take part in this? I'm not suggesting it. But if we do something, we better do it seriously and having an understanding of the worldwide context. Thank you.
Bishop James from West Africa, Liberia. I would like for us to include not just Cape Coast, but the paramount chief and his court of chiefs, and the people of Cape Coast who honored our Archbishop and gave us a very warm welcome. I think we should express our gratitude to Cape Coast Diocese and the paramount chief and his court of chiefs.
My name is Francine from Burundi. I was very, I can't say, my English is not good, but I know you will try to understand. I know that you will understand very well what I need to do, to speak. I mean, we need to be careful in how we can help people, because what we saw there, it means that we need to know what we need to do as a member of the Anglican Church, of the Communion Anglican, because we need to restore the kingdom of God in the heart of people, because what does there, it means they stay in their heart. I mean, it means we need to see how we can help them by telling the truth of the scripture of God, because in that case it will help them to develop the Christian spirit in order to know what they can do and how they can come out from those problems they meet. I think it will be good to pray and to pray for them, and also to see how we can help them by telling the truth of the kingdom of Jesus. Because we know that in every situation, in every problem we meet, Jesus is the answer, is the Alpha and the Omega. Thank you.
Just a reminder that if you are making a contribution and you wish to make that contribution in a language you more naturally speak that we have translation for, please do make use of that facility.
You can meet me halfway, brother.
I support the resolution, but I have no problem with number 1, 3, and 4, but I have a problem with number 2. There is a tendency of ignoring the challenge that the East Africa has gone through. And I think the best way to address that is to lament what is probably the historic involvement of the church in the transatlantic slave trade in the Indian Ocean, not just the transatlantic. I don't know whether you got it right.
Thank you very much. My name is Jackson Olesapit, Archbishop of Kenya. Looking at the resolution, it mainly dwells with what happened to us in Cape Coast. But if we are to address, I want to join my brothers and sisters who spoke earlier, that if we are to address these historical injustices during not just slave trade, but the whole colonial era, because in some parts of Africa which were colonized, people were removed from their ancestral lands. They were completely, alienated and pushed to reserves, and their livelihoods crushed. And even after independence, many countries never reverted anything to those losses. And if we are to look into these historical injustices, it is not going to be just an Anglican communion thing, I think we should be a catalyst as the Anglican Communion and the ACC to challenge every colonizing power that colonized various parts of the world to take seriously issues of reparation, issues of compensation. I don't know which form it will take, but we have to address it in a bigger way. Because if we address it haphazardly and in small areas and pockets, we are going to raise more grief and pain to areas that has not been addressed. Even looking at Cape Coast, we were told the slaves which went through the Cape Coast are not only from Ghana, they were from the rest of West Africa. If we do what we are doing with Ghana, and my brothers here said, was it between the Church of England or Anglican Communion Office and the church in Ghana, or was it from the British government and the Ghanaian government? And if it is, made that bigger, to be government by government, colonizers by colonizers, and whatever the church might have participated, also come in and participate. But let us look at it in a global and a more wider perspective, so that even what we are doing in Ghana should not only be for Ghana, but for the rest of West Africa, because the slaves went through Cape Coast from many other countries here in West Africa. And we should do the same in the Indian Ocean, and also with people who have been denied their land, even when there was not, slavery was not involved, but colonization made movements of people and are made to be denied of their livelihoods and their lands taken away. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Je supporte ce que l'archevêque Ole Sapit a dit, parce que dans ce deuxième point, c'est comme s'il n'y avait rien de mal dans le monde que l'esclavage transatlantique, alors qu'il y avait beaucoup de mal qui ont été faits sur la colonisation, l'apartheid. Tout cela, je crois que nous devons l'adresser également. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. So, Your Grace, Jackson, I think so much of what we moved into when we were putting together this resolution was around how much it erupted for us, I think is the right word, around so many of these injustices around the world. So, Your Grace, I wholeheartedly agree. And to Your Grace, Mayimbo, I wonder, and to what we were speaking about, if we could just add or amend laments the widespread historic involvement of the church in the slave trade and other forms of colonialism around the world from the 17th to the 19th centuries. I mean, this particular trip to the Cape Coast Castle was a space where we move into a larger discussion around these issues, but I think that sort of encapsulates all that we want to, and maybe an invitation to the office to focus on all of that, as hard as it is, but I wonder. Yeah.
We've had final comment. Ranjit, could you just repeat your amendment so that Darren can note it down, please?
Right. So I haven't had a chance to confer with all my folks, but laments the widespread historic involvement of the church in the slave trade and other forms of colonialism around the world from the 17th to the 19th centuries. So that particular, yep.
Thank you. What's your comment specifically about the proposed amendment? No, okay, that's fine. I've got a microphone, but it's, yeah, that's great. I'm going to suggest that I'm going to put to you that we give general consent to that amended form of wording, which broadens out item 2 in line with, so that it will incorporate the comments made about the Indian Ocean and the comments made from Archbishop Jackson. And you can see the wording on the screen. That would be how number 2 now reads. Thank you very much, whoever's doing that typing. That's very helpful. Yeah, but in England we wouldn't say through. No. Yeah, so we'll leave that as it is. I'm not taking any further amendments. I'm not proposing that we have a debate about the amendment. We're going to be very, very pressed for time. And so I'm just going to say, ask, does everybody generally consent to the amendment to paragraph 2? Is everybody happy with that rewording to paragraph 2? Some people are not indicating that they are. That is very unclear. Is everybody content with the with the amendment to paragraph 2? Please show your hands if you are. Right. That does appear to be generally accepted. And so I'm going to ask around now whether you give your general consent to the adoption of the amended resolution. Please raise your hands and raise them clearly so I can see. That does have the general consent of the meeting. As the incoming chair, I'd like to just assure all those in the room that we've taken good note of what's been said. If there are people who have other nuances that they wish to add in relation to this particular matter, please send your comments through to the office, because this is obviously an area which the Standing Committee will be needing to look at and do some further reflection on and potentially take some action. So if you had a comment on that specifically related to the amendment, and you don't feel that the revised version reflects that, please also let us know, because these are not hard set in stone things that we're doing here. This is helping us to form our general direction as we take our work forward. So please do send comments in, because this is clearly something that's going to generate some further thinking. So we move now to 4K, which is the one where I said that 2 resolutions had been brought together. And I would just particularly draw attention to the word including in item 2. So that doesn't mean we are only going to be encouraged to consider Swahili, Arabic and Japanese. It says including. So members of ACC who are aware of other significant language groups which may need support and translation, again, you need to let us know, and then that will be part of that consideration. Is there any comment on this resolution? Mindbo. I think, do you want to say anything? I think you were one of the original proposers.
We appreciate the coming of this resolution. Just one note. The provinces in the, especially in Africa, had produced several archival materials which are archived in several parts of the world, but students from universities and these countries are not allowed to access those materials. I'm just wondering if this will not be the right place to press the ACC to make sure that those materials are accessible to these professors.
Yes, Stephen, would you like to make a comment on that? Just taken him by surprise, just letting you know.
From the office's point of view, we really appreciate the suggestion, and we take this resolution very seriously, and we will do our utmost to fulfill the wishes of this meeting. Thank you very much.
Archbishop of Canterbury and Bishop Anthony.
Long intervention coming up. Who pays for it?
I suspect a short answer is coming up.
Well, I was because of the. I'm not sure that is very, very clear what Archbishop Maimbo is asking us to do. But what I was thinking is if there was something linked to the Lambeth Palace Library, then probably that's something that we may be able to ask the Lambeth Palace Library, the Archbishop of Canterbury, to say there are students who want to access such materials. Can we make it available? That's kind of within what we are able to. But otherwise, if it is more general, it may be harder for us, and even as ACO or ACC, it may be harder for us. But anything that is perhaps linked to the Archbishop, to the library at Lambeth Palace, that will be easier.
Thank you. I can see that I got a thumbs up from the back of the room for that suggestion, so thank you very much. And as I invite you to give your general consent and to raise your hands, I hope our translators will take that as a part of our thanks to them for the work they're doing. It must be particularly difficult this morning, I have to say. Okay. Those who wish to give general consent to this, please raise your hands. Thank you very much. That has overwhelming support. We now move to item 4N for November, which is the first of two resolutions around gender justice. I understand that, these obviously arise from presentations that we've had during the week. Just give a moment to people to read the resolution, which goes onto two screens. If the translators could give me the thumbs up when they're okay. They're not, no, they're not yet. No, I haven't got any thumbs up yet, but when you are ready, please let me know. Thank you very much. I think we're good to go. Are there any comments on this resolution before I invite the meeting to give general consent? I don't. Oh, there's one here. Would you like to speak in French?
Not using French, I can use English. I know that is a small testimony because as a woman, as I told, I'm from Burundi, and I'm among those who committed to join theology school after stopping my job where I were, because after 12 years, I was saw that it's not enough really to continue to work, because we see that our community needs support, and in our church we have few women in the leadership, and I think it's really good to see how we can help others, because myself I committed to join the School of Theology, supporting myself from my husband, of course, because I know that if I need to go forward, I need myself to see how I can really grow, get knowledge in order to be empowered in everything. Because when we need to help others, we need ourselves to sacrifice, even if my life, in order to help others in our community. Thank you. I support this resolution.
Thank you very much. And I can see a comment from table 1.
Thank you. Andrew Atherston from England. The work of the Gender Justice Commission is brilliant, and it's needed in every province. And I very warmly support these 2 resolutions. Can I ask a friendly question about connecting the Lambeth Call on human dignity to the work of the ACC that we've been doing at the moment, how these 2 connect? Perhaps just for an update on the connection between them. Maybe this will come in the next section on Lambeth Calls. You remember the Lambeth Call on human dignity, which was debated in the summer, and then it asks us this. It asks us to extend the work of the Anglican Communion Office to promote human dignity with attention to sexuality as well as gender. We call upon the ACC to examine whether its work on gender justice should be expanded to promote provincial and interprovincial vision and practices towards human dignity, with attention not only to gender but also sexuality. The ACC should explore this possibility at the ACC-18 meeting in 2023. I mean, we've not done that. I don't really understand what it means. Simply asking for perhaps an update and an explanation.
Yeah. I think the first thing to say relating to this meeting is there was no way we were going to have time to be able to prepare and have any sensible discussion about that, because the calls are still being refined in their groups and things. So there will be an update, I'm sure, in the Lambeth conference phase 3 session. Is there anything you want to add at this point, Mandy?
No, I think that you said it, is that the Lambeth calls were separate, and we were asked to specifically leave them out because they hadn't been finalised and further discussion was going on. So the resolution is as stands, and obviously we'll be taking on board anything that comes out of the Lambeth calls as and when they are finished and finalised. Yeah. Thank you.
So essentially, Andrew, we don't have the final text yet. So I would invite the meeting to give its general consent to adopting this resolution. Please raise your hands if you are willing to give general consent. Just think of this as part of your exercise regime for the day. Thank you very much. That's, oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, alternate arms. That might confuse me. And we, our second item on gender justice is 4.0. Again, I'm not expecting a presentation from the front. They'll allow some time for you to read it and for the translators to provide that translation to those using the facility at the moment. Are there any comments? I'm conscious the translation is still going on, but if there are any comments, and I can, then Darren, who's getting quite a lot of exercise this morning, can be ready. Okay, the lights are all off on the microphones. I see no hands raised for comments, so I invite you to give your general consent for this item to be adopted. You might want to use the other arm so you don't over-exercise one side. That clearly has general consent. Thank you very much. The next item, we move into number 5, the fifth mark of mission. And so there's a group that we're going to take as a block, hopefully under this item. So we'll begin with that block. The first of that block is 5A. And then confusingly we jump a few, but they'll be on the screen, and the translators have got the list of which items come in this block. Just waiting for the translators. I mean, we haven't been able to get these externally translated because between midnight and 9 a.m. is not great time to get a whole pile of stuff translated. Okay, and we can move on then to the second one in this block, which is 5E. Which will be up on the screen in a moment. And which is only one screen. And the next one, if we could move on please to F, 5F, which is again one screen. And then the final one in this block is 5G. I am expecting that all fast readers will have cleared their emails before coffee, if they haven't done so already. Yeah, the translators just need to... It's quicker for those of us reading off the screen than it is for those reading and translating. Don't worry, translators, we're not going to move on to the general consent until you're all done. Okay, I've just had a thumbs up from the translators. I'm going to take the first three, A, E and F, as a block, and then I'm aware there's a comment on G. So A, E and F, please raise your hands if you give general consent to adopting this resolution. You clearly do. Thank you very much. Joel, someone will bring you a microphone.
Thank you, Chair, particularly for entertaining this and slightly derailing the process for a moment. With G, as the Anglican Consultative Council, I don't think we have the power to enforce the kind of thing that I'm going to say we need to think very seriously about. It is fantastic news that a loss and damage facility has been established at COP27. And I just want to say that for us to be taken seriously at UNFCCC and in other governmental and corporate level advocacy, that we ourselves as a communion very seriously consider how we might enact a loss and damage facility within the communion, recognizing the historic contribution some of our nations and member churches have had on the climate crisis and the ongoing impact to other member churches of the communion. Thank you.
I think you're right, but I think it's a point well made. So we will take note of that. Yes, Carlos. Are you speaking in Spanish or in English?
Just speaking in Spanish.
Spanish, so please put your headset on.
Buenos días, gracias, Chair. Respecto de la 5A, E y F que acabamos de revisar, junto con el 5G que tenemos enfrente de nosotros, las palabras que se usan son invitación, reconocer, animar, elogiar, la mayoría de las solicitudes. Me gustaría hacer una solicitud al Standing Committee de considerar una enmienda respecto de que tengamos una acción como comunión anglicana. Es decir, particularmente en el Loss and Damage que estamos revisando, podríamos tener una mirada de ser carbonos neutrales en nuestras acciones y nuestras reuniones como Anglican Communion. Reuniones como esta, donde 100 o más personas viajamos de distintas partes del mundo, consumimos recursos naturales, consumimos papeles, energía. Existen hoy día acciones sencillas y puntuales para ser carbono neutrales. Y es como lo están haciendo las organizaciones a nivel mundial, parte de la agenda de la ONU que hemos revisado en los días anteriores. Mi solicitud es que podamos tener una acción o podamos incluir una acción formal o que se estudie donde la comunión anglicana en sus reuniones centrales sean carbono neutral lo antes posible. Muchas gracias.
I'm going to ask Bishop Anthony to make a comment.
We try what we can. Perhaps we have in some cases not actually indicated what we try to do. I know that at the Lambeth conference, one of the reasons why we actually, and I'm looking to Rachel Carnegie to explain the link between the community forest and I think what we did. Rachel Carnegie, are you there? To explain that. But as she comes up, we do what we can. For instance, standing committee now, we only have one face-to-face meeting. All our other meetings now are online. We have a number of meetings that we are now doing online as part of our efforts to ensure that we don't have lots. But Rachel, please.
Thank you very much. As I'm sure you know, the kind of issues of carbon offsetting are very complex, and so there's not an easy equation on that, but it's something that we're looking into. But the communion forest is also a very definite response from the communion to bring nature-based solutions to this. But I think the challenge is very well taken and something that we need to continue to work on, to both work online and meet only when absolutely essential. Thank you.
One practical thing I was looking at, even whilst we've been here, I know just before lunch we have the staff coming over and they actually take whatever bottles are actually left with maybe half a bottle of water, they remove that. And maybe what we might need to do is, if either when you're leaving, go with your bottle or complete whatever bottle of water you have there. That's another practical example that we could do, and I observed that yesterday. So another practical thing that we can actually do even while we're here.
Thank you very much. We have noted that, and we will make sure that is looked at the Standing Committee and taken forward. I'm developing a list, as you might imagine, and we will report back to the ACC. I'll say something a bit more about that when it comes to the closing remarks later on this afternoon. Now I would like to invite you to indicate your general consent to item 5G, please. That has general consent. Thank you very much. We're now coming to, we've got 23 minutes. Reid, would you like to come and introduce item 5B? There's no rush, just to let the translators give people the resolution as you walk up. We're not in a position to offer gate time today. Just allowing the translators to finish translating the resolution before they need to translate Reid speaking. Okay, be good to go.
Madam Chair, fellow council members, good morning. I can say that I am taking all airtime, no gate time this morning. In speaking to this resolution, I begin making a point that we have seen that human greed and crass consumerism and materialism have been the drivers of economic advancement. When Paul wrote to young Timothy in the first epistle, chapter 6, verse 10, to which I alluded in another presentation, it was an admonition for the church and for the world. Just maybe too, we need to bear in mind the man in Luke 12:18, the man who said, I'll break down the barn and build bigger ones. Could it be that it was a case of expanding and grabbing more finances, and especially in our age, an age of what we call grabiology? We have realized that this love of money and material things have driven the transatlantic slave trade. Multinational corporations have found ways to reinvent themselves. George Beckford called them the engine of the plantation economy, where they seek to share the semblance of profits between board members, between owners, and the majority goes into their coffers, but very little goes into countries and economies. What we have is that the average person suffers. The average person who has to live in countries and societies that are now grossly affected by fossil fuels, the use of fossil fuels. We know what is happening with the ozone layer. Our sisters and brothers who are exposed to the rapid rise in sea levels. Certainly in the Americas, there's been an increase in the ferocity and intensity of the hurricanes. June too soon, July stand by, August look out it must, September remember, October, November it's all over, is a nursery rhyme that the people of the region repeat now over and over every year, because category 5++ hurricanes are now affecting them, and all because of global warming and fossil fuels. I just want us, where this resolution is concerned, to take a Emmaus walk together, where we can agree that fossil fuels are causing a great strain on our world. And what we're asking you to do is to sign up where possible, certainly asking members as well as primates and bishops and all other persons concerned whom we can reach with the Christian message of stewardship and environmental advocacy, to sign up and to stop the, as it were, advances in seeking fossil fuels. I'm going to be a little bit more challenging and say that The Church of England in 2018, their National Investment Board, they can serve as a catalyst for us, a sort of nudge, a sort of encouragement where they decided that they would divest from investment in all fossil fuel entities. I believe that this is what we're asking for. We don't have to divest anything, but certainly to append our vote, our signature as a case maybe to this, this resolution and to challenge persons to stop the advancement of fossil fuel exploration. I just want to end by reminding us that the Christian ethic tells us that we are stewards and managers of God's world, and we must do what we can to ensure that our world is preserved, to first fulfill our God-appointed responsibility,
you're running into gate time,
and to leave it for generations to come. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. It's because you were talking slowly for the translators, I appreciate. Just stay there in case there are any comments. Yes, the Archbishop of Canterbury. I thought you might want to comment following our table comments the other day.
Thank you, Reid. Does the treaty provide for a transition, or is this simply saying stop everything now instantly? Because I'm aware of the impact the latter would have on a number of countries in the Communion which depend very heavily on the production of fossil fuels or their consumption for their survival.
Well, what the evidence is, pointed to your grace, is that we have enough renewable energy sources. The challenge, of course, may be how is that filtered around the world. But from what we know, and to be advised more by the professionals and the, as it were, the persons who are immersed in this business, that we have enough fossil fuel, not fossil fuels, but natural resources to effect a change.
Yep, I'm aware of that, but that wasn't the question I was asking. Does the treaty provide for a transition period?
I don't have that document before me right now, but I believe it does. I think it does. I think it does. If there's anyone else who is exposed to this and can help me along, but I think it does. I think it does, sir.
Yeah, two people who I believe know are saying yes, it does.
It does. Thank you.
So, are there any other comments? I think it's been a useful exchange to clarify that point, because that was certainly a point we raised in our discussions yesterday. In which case I invite you to give general consent to adopting this resolution. Oh, Graham, did you want to say something, Graham? Yeah. Because this is something we need to make sure we get right, otherwise we look really stupid.
Okay, yes, this is where we're helping each other. In order to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement, we need international cooperation to explicitly stop the expansion of fossil fuels and manage a global trust transition away from coal, oil, and gas. This is why significant momentum is building behind the proposal for fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty.
Yeah, manage a transition. Excellent.
Yes.
Thanks very much for that, Graham. That's very helpful. So I invite members of ACC to indicate their general consent to adopting this resolution. Thank you. That clearly has your general consent. Thanks very much, Reid. Our final three resolutions for this session, which are H, I and J, will be on the screen, and when I get the thumbs up from the translators, Clifton's going to make a brief comment, but hopefully we will then take them as a block. move on to the next one, please? And if you're ready, could you move on to the final one? Thank you very much. If you bear with us, I can still see people speaking. Not yet, Arthur. Okay, we're all good in the translation booths. Clifton, would you like to come and introduce these?
Thank you, Chair and members of ACC. I joined ACC in ACC-18, so this is my last ACC meeting. And I'm also mindful of the comment that the Archbishop made in his sermon about the book falling from the pulpit. So I will be very short so that nobody has to be hit again over the head. H and J are a commitment from the ACC to go further with the work that was started from ACC-16, continued through ACC-17, and now here at ACC-18. I know with the edits from the resolution committee, there were a number of things adjusted. I just want to assure the youth members in particular that we had a very good and detailed meeting with our chair, legal advisor, and others from the standing committee, and much of the commitments that we want are there, even though we may not see them in words. And really this is to look at how we deepen the youth engagement in the life of the communion, but also in the work of the ACC. The resolution I want to just say a little bit on is youth livelihoods. When we think about youth livelihoods, at ACC-17 we passed a resolution asking for churches to invest in education and employment for young people. We didn't know then, but God knew that COVID was coming, and COVID came shortly after ACC-17, and we saw the impact that it had on the world, but in particular the impact that it had on young people. They were the easiest ones to send home because they had to get the smallest severance packages. And of course, we knew how it also affected the opportunities for education. I myself, I was about to start a master's degree in London, and COVID kept me in Grenada. So it is a real commitment to renew and expand and travel further. We know that the economic challenges globally are affecting people across all age groups, but again, particularly young people. We've talked and we had a resolution about slavery and colonialism, and we also understand how the economy of colonialism continues to disadvantage people from certain backgrounds. And my last comment is actually coming out of a reality that we are facing in all our societies, rich and poor, where we are facing a global housing crisis, and particularly a crisis of affordability of housing for younger people. If those who are from London will understand, because I faced it as when I thought I would be moving to London to study, looking for a place to live. and I would not have been able to afford to live in London. So as much as I am sad I didn't come to London to study because of COVID, I would not have been able to afford to live in London anyway. And so there's a question of how we look at that. And we snuck in one word, ACC, and I'm happy that the resolution committee left it in. We said safe housing, because we heard from the Women's Network, from Mandy at the Gender Desk, and so many others who spoke, that it's not just about having housing, but the housing must be safe, because we know that a lot of the abuse, the most significant amount of abuse happens within households, within close family members. And so we want to encourage churches to invest in opportunities for education, opportunities for livelihoods, and opportunities for safe housing for young and younger people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Archbishop of Canterbury would like to make a comment.
Apologies, this is going to be an advert, but it is about young people. Permission? Thank you. At Lambeth Palace we have something called the Community of St Anselm. The person on the staff who oversees the whole process there is Tosin Oladipe, who works with me as chaplain and is sitting over there, so you can ask him more to save time. The Community of St Anselm is a 10-month residential or non-residential program for people between 21 and 34 years old of any church from anywhere in the world. It's usually about a dozen people. It's slightly smaller at the moment owing to COVID and the difficulties of recruitment in that sense. The people we're always short of are Anglicans. We don't have enough really good Anglicans. It's a process of prayer and work and study with some of the best people you can imagine teaching it. One of them's in my sight line, Joe Wells. It is working with the poor in London, and it includes retreats and silent retreats and self-reflection. The aim is to turn out people, young people who are deeply committed to Christ, intelligent about their faith, and have a vision for the transformation of the world. And it has been doing rather well on that. It's nothing, I don't take any credit for that. Please do talk to Tosin if you can think of anyone, because it will get more young people involved in the Anglican Communion if they come from an Anglican background. And it would be really nice if there wasn't just one or two Anglicans out of the dozen or more that we can take. I really encourage it. It's superb.
Thank you. Those of you who were at the Lambeth conference will have seen Catherine doing things up front. Catherine came from the ACC meeting in Lusaka into that programme and has now been ordained. So it is a really good. I will confirm the words of the Archbishop. Yes, there's a comment over there.
I'll speak Spanish. Thank you, Chair. Jeroán Meléndez, Costa Rica y Iglesia de América Central. Cuando yo fui elegido por mi provincia para ser miembro de ACC, era joven y laico. Aún soy laico. Hoy hay algunos acá, algunas provincias que han enviado delegados. Okay. Jeroán Meléndez, Costa Rica, iglesia de América Central. ¿Sí? Cuando yo fui elegido para ser miembro de ACC, era joven y laico, aún soy laico. Acá hay algunas personas de sus provincias que son jóvenes también, y algunos otros son jóvenes de corazón. Pero estamos acá también con el tema central de las 5 marcas de la misión hoy y mañana. Y si queremos que realmente la iglesia pueda tener una voz relevante para el mundo de mañana, creo que es necesario, es fundamental que tengamos más voces de la gente que estará en el mundo mañana. Un ejemplo muy claro de eso es 5I. Y el siguiente comentario que voy a hacer no es con el ánimo de hacer un reclamo, sino de tener conciencia. En 2018 se hizo una enmienda a la Constitución para poder tener más representación de jóvenes, tener 10 representantes, 2 por cada una de las 5 regiones geográficas de la comunión. Eso fue en 2018. 6 meses después nos reunimos en ACC-17 en Hong Kong, y de las 10 personas que podían estar solamente hubo 8. Había pasado poco tiempo, pero pensaríamos que 4 años después el mecanismo para reclutar o para seleccionar a esas 10 personas habría mejorado. Hoy tenemos 5 de las 10. Entonces mi comentario es para reconocer sí el esfuerzo que se ha hecho, pero para celebrar que podemos seguir mejorando. Es el punto 5J. Cuando algunos hemos hecho comentarios en esta reunión acerca de tener más participación laica, no es en contra de los arzobispos o de los obispos o de los primados, pero yo creo que esto es una muestra contundente de que los obispos, los primados no pueden ni deben hacer el trabajo solos. Necesitan apoyo, necesitamos trabajar juntos como una iglesia. Gracias.
Thank you. Those of you who have listened to the opening press conference may be aware that I raised a similar-ish question, and we will, as a standing committee, definitely be looking at the mechanism for the appointment of those 10 places, because we tried and what we tried hasn't worked, so we need to look again at that, definitely. So I would invite members to indicate their support for this block of 3 resolutions by raising their hands. This is your last exercise before coffee. This is how you earn your pastry or whatever you're going to eat. Thank you very much. That has very clearly got your general consent. Can I thank you? We've got Darren's going to do the standing committee election announcement in a moment, but can I thank you for bearing with us as we've worked through a lot of business this morning. So thank you all very much for your forbearance, particularly as we've had those gaps while we've been waiting necessarily for the translators. There's somebody who's got their hand raised.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm Hannah Kim from province of South Korea, and I'm teaching theology and cyberspace in Anglican University. However, aside from the resolution, may I humbly suggest an important issue for the ACC to consider? May I? Because I cannot find the proper time.
Could you speak to me over coffee and we'll see where we can fit something in, because we are now on at our break time. So just catch up with me in a minute over coffee and we'll see what the issue is and where we might be able to appropriately put it in. Okay?
Thank you.
Just before we go to coffee, just a bit of a reminder about the remainder of the day. When we come, new standing committee